A total war is a war in which the nations involved prioritize winning the conflict over all else. They will utilize all resources at their disposal, even their own citizens, to further the war effort. World War I is an example of a total war. Some even regard it as the first total war. But how does a conflict such as this affect the nations involved? This is the question we hope to answer today, as we take a look into World War I and analyze how both the Allied powers and Central powers were affected by the total war policies they put into place. The Allied powers consisted of Great Britain, France, Russia, Italy, Romania, Canada, Japan, and the United States. The main nations we will be talking about today are Britain, France, and Russia.
The war greatly impacted British society in several ways. Most of the changes put into place were the direct result of the Defense of the Realm Act, abbreviated to DORA. This act was passed on August 8, 1914 by the House of Commons. The act served two main purposes: censorship and control of the public. The act made it illegal to publish any negative information about the war, or criticism of the war or government. The War Office Press Bureau, established in 1914, monitored the press and censored news reports before they were made available to the public. This even included letters soldiers wrote to their family. DORA also led to restrictions on the daily lives of citizens. In January of 1918, rationing was introduced by the Ministry of Food. This ensured that soldiers had adequate supplies. Another policy with a significant impact on British society was conscription. Originally, men would join the British military voluntarily, but about a year after the war began, Parliament realized that this would not be enough. So the Military Service Act was passed in January 1918. This implemented a conscription system where any man between the ages of 18 and 45 had to serve in military. There were some exceptions to this, however. Those who served as educators and priests, worked in essential industrial jobs, or were unable to fight did not have to serve. Additionally, if someone could not bring themselves to fight because of the moral benefits could serve non-combat roles, the totality of the First World War could be clearly seen with Great Britain. During the war, France was also affected in multiple ways. Battles of the time, such as Battle of the Frontiers and the First Battle of the Marne, had devastating effects. This includes the destruction of 20,000 plus industrial compounds, 2,000 canals and bridges, 62,000 kilometers of road, and more than 5,000 kilometers of railroads. This was not all, though. During the war, many citizens were also sent into battle. Approximately 8.4 million French were sent to fight against the Western Front. Few survived. During the war, the French were responsible for making their own ammunition, so they left it up to the private companies. 15 groups produced shells and 3 groups produced rifles. However, there was no match for Germany's production capability. Additionally, due to bombardment, they lost some key industrial areas. Even though Germany had superior production capability, the French achieved some spectacular increase in armaments production. By 1918, French producers were making 1,000 artillery guns, 261,000 shells, and 6 million bullets per month. They became one of the leading producers of ammunition and arms, even competing with America after the war. France had its fair share of problems, though. Economically, this country was struggling because they lost the manpower for production. The destruction caused by the war left the nation having to rebuild its infrastructure. Russia. Despite leaving the war early in March 1918, after signing a treaty between them and Germany, Russia saw its fair share of battles. Firstly, the Battle of Galicia between Russia and Austria-Hungary. This battle lasted from the 23rd of August 1914 to the 11th of September of that same year. It resulted in a loss of Austria-Hungary, forcing them to retreat, and Russia was able to advance in forces forward and capture significant amounts of territory around the city of Lemberg. The next major battle was on the Eastern Front, the Battle of Tannenberg. The Battle of Tannenberg went on from August 26th to August 30th in 1914 and was fought between Germany and Russia. The German attack proved to be too much for the Russian forces and led to the Battle of Tannenberg being a major defeat for Russia. The Russian failure at the Battle of Tannenberg was so devastating to the Russian army that it did not invade Germany again. For the rest of World War I, another important conflict on Eastern Front was the Gorlice-Temo offensive. This was a major military offense carried out by the Central Powers of Germany and Austria-Hungary against Russia. The Gorlice-Temo offensive took place from May 2nd to June 22nd in 1915 and occurred along the eastern border of Austria-Hungary. In general, the offensive was a major victory for Germany and Austria-Hungary. Central Powers. The Central Power included nations such as Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire. We will be focusing on Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. Germany. The First World War saw Germany endure many hardships. At the beginning of the war, the nation's patriotism and morale were at high. Germany had a strong military helped by the implementation of conscription once the war began. Many Germans believe that they will swiftly emerge victorious, but that was not the case. Over the next few years, the war would have devastating effects. Food rationing resulted from the desire to ensure soldiers were well fed. Germany endured food and supply shortages, only worsened by the British blocking of German ports in the north. The conditions culminated in the turnip winter, spanning from 1916 to 17. This was a time where many German families had to resort to eating turnips, traditionally used as food for livestock, as their main source of food. This starvation was so severe, an estimated 474,000 citizens died from malnourishment. During this time, on top of the struggle to find food, German citizens had to deal with overcrowding in the cities caused by an increase in migration. Working conditions were also poor and working days were long. A major change to industry caused by the war was the introduction of women in the workplace. Most men were fighting in the military, so to make up for this, women began working in factories to maintain production of goods by 1918. Germany's determination had faded and many citizens were against the war effort. During the First World War, Austria-Hungary was a central power. This began with an Austro-Hungarian War declaration on the Kingdom of Serbia on 28th of July 1914. In 1914, Austria-Hungary was Europe's second largest state after Russia and the third largest population after Russia and Germany. Despite the Austria-Hungary endured hardships throughout the First World War, one of these hardships was crop failure. This happened around 1914. Austria-Hungary was a predominantly agricultural society, but was not agriculturally self-sufficient. The war cut off their main sources of food. Russia and Romania, by around 1917, their wheat production went down and their production of rye and oats fell more. To make matters worse, Hungary, Austria's less powerful partner, and closed in the frontier with Austria in 1914, and ceased to consider an agricultural produce as a common resource, choosing instead to sell whatever surplus it had to the army and to Germany. This decrease in food supply led to starvation. Another problem was that after Russia lost the war, Austria-Hungary had to rely on Germany. Eventually, mutinies would arise, leading to the end of Austria-Hungary as a nation. During World War I, the Ottoman Empire was another one of the Central Powers. Two of the most important battles they participated in were the Caucasus Campaign and the Gallipoli Campaign. The Caucasus Campaign took place from October of 1914 until October of 1918. Ultimately, the fighting of the campaign ended with Russia withdrew from the war due to the events of the Russia Revolution. The Gallipoli Campaign took place from February 17, 1915 until January 9, 1916. The Gallipoli Campaign was placed from February 17, 1915 until January 9, 1916. The Gallipoli Campaign was fought between the Allied powers and the Central Powers. The goal of the Gallipoli Campaign from the perspective of the Allied powers was to weaken the Ottoman Empire, which exerted a great deal of influence in the southeastern areas of Europe. Conclusion. Overall, because of total war, throughout the war, the death count exceeded over 37 million, which include both military personnel and civilians. Overall, the country with the most deaths because of the war was Germany. They lost over 2 million soldiers and thousands of civilians. Large sections of land, especially in France and Belgium, were completely destroyed. Fighting laid buildings, bridges, and railroads lines and ruins. Chemical, weapon, and gun shells made farming land unusable for the years to come.